Luke chapter 5, verses 1 to 11. Once, while Jesus was standing beside the crowd of the lake of Gennesaret, and the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the words of God, he saw two boats there at the shore of the lake. The fishermen had gone out from them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little way from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said, "Simon, put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we have worked all night long, but have caught nothing. Yet if you say so, I will let down my nets." When they had done this, they caught so many fish that their nets were beginning to break. So they signalled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so that they began to sink. But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell to Jesus' knees, saying, "Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For he and all who were with him were amazed at the catch of the fish that they had taken. And so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, and the partners with Simon. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching people." When they brought their boats to shore, they left everything and followed him. There's a look, isn't there, that says it's too late. You've seen it, the rolling of the eyes, the shaking of the head. It's too late. Too late to save a marriage, too late to reconcile, too late for a new career, too late to catch any fish, or so Peter thinks. All night he had fished. He had witnessed both the setting and the rising of the sun, but has nothing to show for it. While other fishermen catch their catch, he just cleaned his nets. And now Jesus wants him to try again. Now it happened that while the crowd were pressing around him and listening to the word of God, Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret. The Sea of Gennesaret, or Galilee, is a 6 by 13 mile body of water in northern Israel. These days her shores sleep, attracting a small cluster of tour buses and a small handful of fishermen. But in the days of Jesus, this area was bustling with people. 9 of the seacoast villages boasted populations of 15,000 plus. And you get the impression that a good proportion of those people were present the morning Christ ministered on the beach. As more people arrived, more people pressed. With every press, Jesus took a step back. Soon he was stepping off the sand and into the water. That's when he had an idea. He saw 2 boats lying on the edge of the lake, but the fishermen had gotten out of them and were washing their nets. And he got into one of the boats, which was Simon's, and asked him to put out a little way from the land. And he sat down and began teaching the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Jesus needs a boat. Peter provides one. Jesus preaches. Peter is content to listen. Jesus suggests a mid-morning fishing trip, however, and Peter gives him a look. The "it's too late" look. He runs his fingers through his hair and sighs, "Master, we have worked all night and caught nothing." Can you feel Peter's frustration? All night the boat floated fishless on the black sheet of the sea. Lanterns of distant vessels bounced like fireflies. The men swung their nets and filled the air with the percussions of their trade. Swish, slap, silence. Swish, slap, silence. Midnight. Excited voices from across the lake reach the men. Another boat have found a whole load of fish. Peter considered moving, but decides not to. Swish, slap, silence. 2 o'clock in the morning. Peter rested while his brother fished. Then Andrew rested. James, floating nearby, suggests a move. The others agree. Wind billowed the sails and blew the boat to a little cove. The rhythm resumed. Swish, slap, silence. Every pull of the net was far too easy. This night the lake was giving them nothing. Most mornings the sunrise inspired the men. Today it only tired them. They didn't want to see it. Who wants to dock an empty boat? Who wants to tie up and clean up, knowing they have had no catch? And most of all, who wants to hear a well-rested carpenter turned preacher say, "Put out your nets into deep water for a catch"? Oh, the thoughts Peter must have had. I'm tired, bone tired. I want a meal and a bed, not a fishing trip. Am I this guy's tour guide now? Besides, half of Galilee is watching. I already feel like a loser. Now he wants a mid-morning fishing exhibition. You can't catch fish in the morning. Count me out. Whatever Peter's thoughts were, he summarises it in one little phrase. We've worked hard all night and caught nothing. Do you have worn, wet, empty nets? Do you know that feeling of a sleepless, fishless night? Of course you do. For what have you been casting out for? I've worked all night and caught nothing. You felt what Peter felt. You sat where Peter sat, and now Jesus is asking you to go fishing. He knows your nets are empty. He knows your heart is weary. He knows you're like nothing more than to turn your back on this mess. But he urges you, it's not too late to try again. See if Peter's reply won't help you formulate your own. I will do as you say, and let down the nets. There's not much passion in those words. You might hope for a kind of big old smile, a fist pump in the air. Yeah, Jesus, I've got my boat. You put the oven on. But Peter shows no excitement at all. He feels none. Now he has to unfold the nets, pull out the oars, and convince James and John to postpone their rest. He has to work. If faith is measured in seeds, then his is smaller than a mustard seed. Inspired? No. Obedient? Absolutely. And all Jesus requires is the smallest amount of obedience. Put out into the deep water, Jesus instructs. Why the deep water? You suppose Jesus knew something that Peter didn't? I suppose spotting fish is easy when you've made them. Peter gives the net a swish, lets it slap, and watches it disappear. Luke, in this passage, doesn't tell us what Peter did while he was waiting for the net to sink. So I will. I like to think that Peter, while holding the net, looks over his shoulder at Jesus. And I like to think that Jesus, knowing Peter is about to be half yanked into the water, starts to smile. Because there's so much to smile about. And when they'd done this, they enclosed a great quantity of fish, and their nets begin to break. So they signalled to their partners in the other boat for them to come and help them. And they caught and filled both boats so that they began to sink. Peter's arm is yanked into the water. It's all he can do. It is to hang on until the other guys come to help. Within moments, the 4 fishermen and the carpenter are on their knees in fish, crowded by fish. Peter lifts his eyes off of the catch onto the face of Christ. In that moment, for the first time, he sees Jesus. Not Jesus the fish finder, not Jesus the multitude magnet, not Jesus the rabbi, not Jesus the preacher. Peter sees Jesus, the Lord. Peter falls face first among the fish. Their stink doesn't bother him. It's not their stink that he's worried about. Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. Christ has no intention of honouring that request. He doesn't abandon self-confessed sinners. Quite the contrary, he kind of enlists them. Do not fear. From now on, you will be catchers of men. Contrary to what you might have been told, Jesus doesn't limit his recruiting to the proper. The beat up and the worn out are the prime perspectives in Jesus's book. And he's been known to climb into a few boats and bars and brothels to tell them it's not too late to start again. Peter learned the lesson, but you wouldn't have known it. Peter forgot the lesson. 2 short years later, this man who confessed Christ as Lord in the boat cursed Christ at a fire. The night of Jesus' crucifixion, Peter told people that he'd never even heard of Jesus. He couldn't have made a more tragic mistake. He knew it. The blurry fisherman buried his bearded face in thick hands and spent Friday night in tears. And the feelings of the Galilean morning came back to him. It's too late. But then Sunday came. Jesus came. Peter saw him. Peter was convinced that Christ had come back from the dead, but apparently Peter wasn't convinced that Christ had come back for him. So he went back to the boat, to the same boat, the same beach, the same sea. He came out of retirement. He and his buddies washed the barnacles off the hull, unpacked the nets and pushed out. They fished all night, and honest to Peter, they caught nothing. Poor Peter. Blew it as a disciple, now he's blowing it as a fisherman. About the time he wonders if it's too late to take up carpentry, the sky turns orange, and they hear a voice from the coastline. Had any luck? They yell back, no. Turn to the right side of the boat. With nothing to lose and no more pride to protect, they give it a go. So they cast their nets, and then they were not able to haul it in because of the great number of fish. It takes a moment for the déjà vu to hit Peter, but when it does, he cannonballs into the water and swims as fast as he can to the one who loved him enough to recreate a miracle. This time, the message stuck. Peter never again fished for fish. He spent the rest of his days telling anyone who will listen, it's not too late to try again. It's not too late for you. Before you go, Hayley, you don't know. Before you fold up your nets and head for the house, I have two questions for you. Have you given Christ your boat, your heartache, your dead-end dilemma, your struggle? Have you really turned it over to him? And have you gone deep? Have you bypassed the surface water solutions you can see in search of the deep channel provisions that only God can give? Try the other side of the boat. Go deeper than you've gone. You may find what Peter found. The payload of his second effort was not the fish he caught, but the God he saw.